Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. I thought that John Sapichetti was my friend because, we've been working together for almost 10 years now, believe it or not, Sap. And, we've spent a lot of time together, inside studios, outside studios. We text every day. And yet, when we were talking about doing the show today, you want me to talk about the Celtics again, which I think is a very cruel thing to do to somebody that you consider a friend.
I'll go along with that, Jet. Yeah, it is pretty cruel, but there's a lot to unpack there, right? I mean, what they've done or not done so far this year, and look, they've had some really grotesque losses this year. What happened last night at Madison Square Garden takes the cake. I mean, a 25-point lead. They were in total control of the game. And slowly but surely, the Knicks came back. I mean, they had some of these ridiculous runs, the Knicks. They had like a 14-0 run, a 17-3 run. Actually, Jayson Tatum forced the tie with a second and a half left, and RJ Barrett hits a 27-footer off the bank to win the game 108-105. And it's like, oh, that's kind of expected, isn't it? Because that's what happens to the Celtics. Jet, do you know this year the Celtics in games decided by 5 or fewer points are 2-11?
Horrible.
That's almost impossible, right? 13 games have been decided by 5 or fewer points. They've won 2 of them. They're kind of like the Minnesota Vikings of the NBA, who are always in games and end up losing in overtime. Someone makes a kick for the other team, they miss a kick, and you walk away going, how the hell did we lose that game? That's the Celtics this year, 2-11 in games decided by 5 or fewer points. And the other thing I want to bring up too is about, obviously, they're going to get criticized the most, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, although I thought Jayson Tatum was really good last night. 36 points, 9 assists. He showed his entire skill set last night. When it's just Jayson Tatum and not Jaylen Brown, the Celtics are 7-7. When it's just Jaylen Brown and not Jayson Tatum, they're 2-2. When both play, they're 9-12. They're sub 500 when they have their 2 stars. And I continue to call them stars, not superstars. But when their 2 best players are out there, and you would think that they would be better with the 2 of them, they're actually worse than when one of them is not there. 9-12 in 21 games that Tatum and Brown have played together. Each other, I saw last night, Tatum was heating it up in the second quarter. There was a reaction shot to the bench, and Jaylen Brown didn't look like he gave a you-know-what. Like he wasn't clapping for his teammate. The other night when Jaylen Brown put his head forward and, tried to tie the game with a layup, Jayson Tatum almost ran into him. And then when Brown misses the layup, it was actually a San Antonio Spur that consoled him, while Tatum just kind of walked off the court as if to say, well, I should have got the damn ball and I would have tied it up. It's just they don't work well together. And again, I had compared them a little bit to going back almost 30 years ago to Jim Jackson, Jamal Mashburn, and Jason Kidd in Dallas, 3 wildly talented players. It just didn't work. And I think it's time to make moves. Although, you being the Celtics expert, do you think that the move is better to make in the off season when you can kind of like regroup and play the field a little bit better, or should they make a move before at the trade deadline, which is February 10th? And the one move I would make is I would trade Jaylen Brown to Washington for Bradley Beal. And I think that could happen, right? I mean, I don't think that's that far-fetched, because Beal is close with Jayson Tatum. Now you're empowering Jayson Tatum by making a move like that. Maybe that just shakes things up. I think we're all kind of at a loss.
Yeah, I wouldn't wait. I don't think that there's any point in waiting anymore, unless you really believe that something much better is going to shake loose come the off season. I have a hard time kind of believing that. I think, the market for Brown is probably robust, as it makes sense. He's a young wing, talented scorer, which is what most teams are looking for. And he's he's a quality person, so he's not going to be a headache in the locker room. So
can I push back on that though, Jet? I think he's a great guy. I love him. I think he's going to run for the U.S. Senate at some point. I really like Jaylen Brown, but I don't know if he necessarily fits into an NBA locker room. He does appear to always think he's the smartest guy in the room, and in most cases he is.
Yeah, but I don't think he's a problem.
No, but he seems to have had problems with every teammate, whether it's Kyrie Irving, which a lot of people have had problems with, although Kyrie Irving's pretty much gotten along with his teammates, right? It's more of a thing of, is he going to show up and play? Is he going to only play half the schedule?
He didn't he hate all of his teammates in Cleveland and ghost on them towards the end of it?
By the end, yeah. Yeah, he's not a good guy either. But I mean, as much as I love Jaylen Brown, I mean, he's had problems with Marcus Smart. He had problems with Marcus Morris. I have no clue what his relationship is with Jayson Tatum. Last week, Al Horford, in a very benign comment, said, we've kind of got to look in the mirror, and they asked for Jaylen Brown's comment on that, and he said no comment. So he kind of threw his teammate under the bus. Again, I like Jaylen Brown. His off the court stuff is great. I think he's a guy who works his ass off to become a better player. He has no feel for the game. Like we can admit that, right? He plays with blinders on out there. Do you realize he's averaging 3.6 turnovers a game and only 2.4 assists per game? I didn't think that was possible for a
He's
wing.
not a good passer.
No, those are numbers you see from like the 80s with centers. Like Moses Malone might have had those numbers, because he's going to like knock someone over or lose the ball out of bounds off his foot or something and not get a lot of assists. You can live with that with a rim protector, a big, powerful center. And again, those don't even exist today because of the change in the game. A wing averaging 3.6 turnovers, like that's not quite Russell Westbrook level, but at least Westbrook gives you 8 or 9 assists a game. Jaylen Brown gives you 2.4 assists to go with the 3.6 turnovers. I mean, it's almost like a quarterback throwing more interceptions than touchdowns, which doesn't exist anymore in the NFL. So he doesn't really have a good feel for the game. I think he's the guy you got to move on from because Tatum is more talented, right? I mean, I think everyone would agree with that. And again, I'm thinking Bradley Beal comes here, Tatum, his game steps up. Maybe it works. I think it's worth a try.
Yeah, no, I mean, Sap, I've been saying this, in this show and when I'm doing the post-game shows, I think at this point, it's definitely worth risking taking a step back to try to take a step forward. If you take a step back, okay, like it's better than this. This is the worst thing they could be in right now. And yeah, I agree with you. If you have to trade one of those two guys and you can't find a third star, and I think that's a pipe dream at this point, trading for a third star, because you don't have the pieces necessary to acquire one. Your draft picks you have all your own draft picks, but as of right now, they're, end of lottery picks, not that desirable. And you haven't developed any young players to the point where they're enticing trade chips. Why in the hell, Sap, would somebody in free agency, a star player, choose to come to this dumpster fire right now?
Right.
So I think that's a complete pipe dream. So then you're left with, okay, what do we do? And I think that the logical answer is we gotta change the dynamic of the team. Pick one guy between those two guys, Tatum and Brown. I agree with you. Tatum is more talented, so take him. Trade the other and retool the entire team around the one guy that you pick. If you're trading him for Bradley Beal and that makes Jayson Tatum happy, okay, because at this point, Sap, the way it's going, Brown and Tatum both, more likely Tatum sooner or is going to say, get me the hell out of here and ask for a trade. That's not that far away. Celtics fans can delude themselves into thinking, oh, no, that would never happen. It's 2022 now. This is what the NBA is. If you're not satisfying the star player, they're going to ask to get out of here. Tatum has no ties to Boston. He's from St. Louis. He's played here for a few years, but he didn't grow up rooting for the team. He doesn't care.
Don't you think he really wants to at some point play for the Lakers? I mean, Kobe Bryant was his idol. He likes LeBron. LeBron says all nice things about him. And
yes and no. I think that describes everybody, Sap.
True. That's true. Yeah. I mean, if you have to play for the Lakers or the Celtics, you play for the Lakers. You're living in Southern California, living in the Northeast, where today we got 8 inches of snow and it's going to be 19 degrees tomorrow morning. So yeah, I mean, I'd go to LA if I could play basketball too. The only thing with Bradley Beal, and I'd like to see him come here because I think that would really help Tatum. He's not necessarily, he's really not a facilitator either. He's a score first guard who's shooting 29% from 3-point territory this year.
Yeah, he's having a bad year. Yeah, very bad.
And Tatum's shooting 33% from 3 points. So Tatum a couple of years ago was close to a 40% 3-point shooter. Now he's all the way down to 33%. Beal's been a guy who's normally been 36, 37%, which is good, not great. He's at 29%. So now, again, you'd have this issue with 3-point shooting. And Stan Van Gundy pointed out last night that the Celtics as a team shoot 33% from the floor. That's horrible. Like that's almost a situation where you shouldn't take threes.
No,
and yet they continue to jack them up.
After every, terrible shooting performance the Celtics have, you'll see like Sean Grandy or a bunch of other, people who work for the Celtics or Greeny from Barstool, Celtics toadies say, oh man, it was just a terrible shooting night. How can you expect them to win when they shoot, this percentage from the floor? Well, Why are you surprised? It happens all the time to them. They're a bad shooting team. Bad shooting teams shoot poorly from the floor. That's what they are. They don't have good shooters. This team hasn't been well constructed for a couple of years now, Seth, because they don't have guys who can shoot threes.
Can't we just at least see Aaron Nesmith a little bit? Didn't he come out of college as the best shooter in that draft? Like, just play him. Let's see what he can offer. Let's play Langford, right? Let's just see what these two kids can do.
Langford can't shoot, but
he can't shoot, but he can defend. So
he can defend.
He can defend, and Nesmith has a nice looking shot. Let the guy play. Look, if he goes 0 for 6, don't pull him and never play him again. And maybe because the
Pritchard, same thing.
Let him out there. Just go out there and see what the hell happens. I'm tired of Grant Williams, who now they're comparing him on the telecast last night. He could be a PJ Tucker type player. No, he can't. PJ Tucker who's outstanding from the corner, and I know Grant Williams is a good corner 3-point shooter, but whatever. I mean, if we're comparing Grant Williams to PJ Tucker, the Celtics have a lot more problems because we're talking about PJ Tucker as a role player.
Right.
But that's the thing. You go get Bradley Beal, and now you've got two guys that can't shoot threes who are going to just look at it and it's okay. It's really our team now, right? And we're just going to just run with it. And Lord knows what's going to happen there. I think more than anything, they really need a veteran point guard. Marcus Smart's not a veteran point guard. Dennis Schroeder, they should move because he's not going to sign here for next year. Get what you can for him right now. He's not a winning player either. He was a pain in the ass with the Lakers last year. He's never really won anywhere he plays. I think he gives you a lot of the bad qualities of Rajon Rondo. I mean, he's known as German Rondo, but he doesn't give you all the good qualities that Rondo gives you. So I'd move on from him. Maybe you move on from Horford at this point. To get what you can. Right. Who's going to take that contract? So
here's the scary thing about Horford, Sap, is that, he looked good to start the season, but you've seen the age really creep up the more minutes he's played. For some reason, Ime Udoka, who we're going to get to in a second, thought that it was a good idea to play Al Horford, 35 minutes a game, every game to start the season.
Crazy.
Like that's insanity. It's like, oh, this guy's just not going to age. He's not LeBron. He's Al Horford. They're not the same person.
Play him 26 minutes a night, 24 minutes a night. Maybe you split time with Rob Williams. And Rob Williams is
there are games he was playing 40 minutes a night.
Yeah,
several games at the start of the season.
Like he must have thought this was 2011 in Atlanta.
He's going to he's going to kill him.
Kill the poor guy. Yeah, exactly. And I'm impressed with Rob Williams. I mean, I don't like the fact that he's not reliable. He's just a guy that, after playing 3 straight games, it seems to need a week off. But the thing I will say about this, their best facilitators on offense are Al Horford and Rob Williams. Rob Williams has a really good feel for the game.
Very good passer.
Why not use Rob Williams the way Golden State uses Draymond Green? Right? Defender, rebounder. Yeah, run your offense through him. Don't run your offense through Jaylen Brown. And look, Jayson Tatum can pass. I don't think he always wants to. I mean, last night against the Knicks, he looked like, a top 10 player, right? I mean, he was the best player on the floor. Well, Evan Fournier might have been the best player on the floor. By the way, Evan Fournier, right, in 3 games against the Celtics this year is averaging 35 points per game. In the other 35 games against the rest of the league, he's averaging 11.7 points per game. I've never seen anything quite like that, where he just lights up one team where he played last year. And by the way, did anybody not take a challenge to shut him down? Like, isn't there a player on the Celtics that would say him? Or do something, or just get Evan Freedom, Enes Freedom off the court, who's a liability defensively, and Dennis Schroeder, who's a liability defensively. But don't you think, like, maybe Jaylen Brown would say, look, I'm better than this guy. I'm going to shut him down. Like, where's that responsibility, that leadership? Instead, Evan Fournier looked like freaking Jerry West last night. He had 10 3-pointers. And, he was a big part of that comeback. So that was a disaster as well. But yeah, I mean, the Bradley Beal deal would be nice. Damian Lillard would be even better. But again, he's still a score-first guy. And we look what happened in Phoenix over the last year and a half with Chris Paul, right? I mean, they brought Chris Paul in, and now Devin Booker's an elite player, and DeAndre Ayton's an elite player, and they drafted smartly with Bridges and Cam Johnson, and they have the best record in basketball. A real point guard. And I look to Chicago. Chicago had Zach LaVine, who everyone told me is nowhere near as good as Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum. While they add DeMar DeRozan through free agency, and then they bring in Lonzo Ball, a real point guard, and they have the best record in the East. I don't think they're going to win the title, but that's a nice story. You need a facilitator out there who is going to make it easier for Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, not more difficult. When you're running your offense through Jaylen Brown, first of all, the other 4 guys on the court should just go back on defense because he just doesn't pass. And then when he does, it's with poor results. On Jaylen Brown, because I do like the person. I like the person more than I like the player, but it just doesn't fit with him and Jayson Tatum. And I know you want to go off on Ime Udoka, and I'm probably going to be right there with you as well.
No, I agree with you too there, Sep. When we were talking about the Celtics about this offseason, and I tweeted it and I said it to you, I think when we were right before the season starts, that I thought they had a hole at the point guard position. And the guy I really wanted was Ricky Rubio. Now he's out for the year, but he was paying huge dividends in Cleveland. Because, I mean, there's not a lot. Listen, there's not a lot of those past first point guards left. It's not a super common position anymore. But, those are the types of players that can make the whole team better. Brown and Tatum don't make anybody better. And I don't believe that they don't like each other. I think that they are friends off the court and whatever. That doesn't even matter. I mean, obviously, Michael Jordan wasn't friends with any of his teammates. So
he punched them, but it worked.
So I don't think it matters. That matters. But yeah, I don't think they play well together. And when I do the show, Sap, I do the post-game show pretty much after every game. And, we have a couple of regulars who come in and watch the show live when I do it. And they always, they've been pointing this out to me, the same thing. And I think it's gaining a lot of traction on social media too, is that do Brown and Tatum ever both play well in the same game?
No,
like both have 20-point games each?
That's a great point.
Plus?
Great point. It seems like there was one game this year where I think one had 40 and one had 31 and they won the game. I think it was against Miami, which is probably their best win of the year. Right?
It's like Miami. Once in a blue moon. Seth.
That's it. That's the only time I can recall. Like, again, last night, Jayson Tatum looked like a top 10 player, and Jaylen Brown after the first quarter was non-existent. The night before against San Antonio, Jaylen Brown was good, and Jayson Tatum was, 6 for 22? Yeah, they never play at a high level together, and that's, again, a problem. And, again, whether they like each other or don't really care, Larry Bird wasn't best friends with Kevin McHale either. I mean, in fact, they looked at the world completely differently. Like, Bird was this type A. Everything was about basketball before family. And Kevin McHale was someone totally different. Kevin McHale, when the Celtics were playing in New York on Christmas Day, I think it was 1985 or 86 or whatever year it was, flew down the morning of the game because he wanted to be with his family Christmas morning. And Bird was like, what? Like, you got to be out there the night before to be ready to play that day. They were going to fine McHale, and finally Red Auerbach said, no, that's not reasonable. The guy wanted to be with his family. Two totally different guys, but on the court it worked, right? So look, I'll go back to my favorite baseball player, actually my favorite athlete of all time, Barry Bonds. He and Jeff Kent hated each other, despised each other. They had fist fights in the dugout. It worked.
Everybody hated Jeff Kent.
Most guys.
Jeff Kent's a massive a-hole.
But it worked though, right? Like they were the best 3-4 combination in baseball for 5 or 6 years. So I don't think people were really crazy about Curt Schilling in 2004 with the Red Sox. He's also an a-hole. But when he went out to pitch, you knew he was committed to pitch and he was there for the team and all of that stuff. So, you could, again, I know it's a different time and it's a different generation and the league is different than it was, say, in 1986 with McHale and Bird. And you hope that these guys, are friends as well, but it shouldn't matter. It's what they just don't mix and mesh on the basketball court together. And that's a sizable problem when they're your two best players. They're clearly your two best players. Like, who's the third best player on the Celtics? I don't even know. Is it Smart? Is it? Yeah, probably. He's probably got the highest upside because he's bigger and he can do so many really good things, but then he's not reliable because he's always hurt. He's missed like half the games that he's only been available for half the games that he could have been playing there for, and I'll put that sentence in English at some point, but he's missed half of the potential games in his career. That's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, they're a mess, Sap. They're a mess. There's no other way to put it. And I categorize the Celtics fan base as an abused fan base now. And do you want me to go off on Udoka, or do you want to go to the returns? We can do, I guess, one of those things. Up to you, Sap.
Let's just go off on Udoka instead of talking about. I mean, Kyrie, we can always hit on because I'm sure something crazy will happen in the next 5 days with Kyrie, and we'll see. Actually, maybe we'll wait to see how Clay looks over the weekend, if in fact he comes back with Golden State. So yeah, just keep this Celtic centric. How's that sound?
Yeah,
it'd be very cathartic. it'll be
One way
very
to make
cathartic
this
for you.
even worse for me, Sap, would be to force me to talk about Kyrie getting a win in his return. That's like,
true too.
that's the ultimate too.
Yeah, I just
By the way, Sap, I'm the only person that does a video component on this show, which I think people appreciate. You used to, and then you gave
yes.
up on me, and so I was thinking that maybe you're embarrassed about what your background is, which was a blue sheet before or a
Yep.
tablecloth or something like that.
I think it's a sheet. Yeah.
So, okay, so let's get you a bookshelf full of Atlas Shrugged, because your guy Aaron Rodgers made a very, very big show out of pointing out that he's very smart. And his bookshelf is Atlas Shrugged when he was doing the Manning cast. So I thought
I'm up
maybe
for that. Yep.
you like that. It's kind of like how in the Trump White House he had a bookshelf full of just Art of the Deal.
Exactly. Yeah. This is the only book I've ever read, and it's my book. And Aaron Rodgers has to tell us that he is the smartest guy in the world. Another Cal guy, right? Just like Jaylen Brown. I mean, you go Cal and Duke are two places where if you go there, you just assume you're the smartest guy in the room. Yeah, that sounds good to me. We'll get the bookshelf with 50 copies of Atlas Shrugged and maybe 50
Have
copies
you ever read that one,
Fountainhead. I've tried, and it's just like I'd rather go to the dentist and die because of too much lidocaine. And then they get to the Fountainhead too. So yeah, we can read Ayn Rand. So she can tell us that bootstraps.
Heavy.
Yeah,
heavy books.
She's very heavy. Yeah, very very heavy. Like it's all up to you. There's existential and all of this stuff. Yeah, this seems a bit heavy, but Aaron Rodgers does go on McAfee once a week and also has a book once a week. And of course, he has to make it obvious that he's smarter than Pat McAfee, which doesn't take much. Although McAfee's making $30 million a year doing a podcast, that's pretty good. And he wears a tank top and stands up while he's doing it better for him. But yeah, maybe we'll work on a video component. I can go into the lobby of the Winthrop Arms where I live. It's really nice there. There's like a bar and tables and maybe that can be the background. But I
grab some walk-by guests in the lobby.
Just pull them in. The average age is like 94 of the people that come in, so they can talk about Bob Cousy, who would probably be an upgraded point guard for this team at 94. There you go. Get Kuz out there. He probably would, set up Tatum and Brown better than they are now. But
Ime Udoka would probably think playing him 35 minutes a night at this point would be a good idea too.
Yeah, 93-year-old guy. But yeah, Ime, can I give you my quick take on Ime, and then I'll let you go away with it. I'll just let you run with it. I'll be the point guard. All right, I'll do my thing, and then I'll assist to you. I'm just getting tired of him analyzing the team after the game and doing nothing about it. Like, it's like he'd be great on NBC Sports Boston, and I'd rather actually hear him analyze the team than some of the fools they have on there that say nothing negative about the Celtics. It's like, oh boy, they were close again and they lost. But you're the coach, try to fix it. And I also think that, again, he coached under Popovich, and Popovich has a massive coaching tree, as does Belichick, right? And I think the one mistake any of those assistant coaches can make when they get their own head gig is try to act like Popovich and Belichick. You can't. Those guys have 11 championships between them. They are unique. You've got to be your own man. And I don't know if Popovich is, he criticized Tim Duncan, who's one of the 10 greatest players ever. It's a different time now. I don't know if you could go out there and pretty much shit on Tatum and Brown that way. So that's my only thing. And look, I like the guy. I really do. But I'm starting to think that he's kind of a little like John Farrell was when he was managing the Red Sox. Now, Farrell's first year there, they did win the World Series. But I always thought that Farrell was going to be this commanding presence because he's like 6'4", good-looking guy, John Wayne, all of that stuff. And that never came true. And I kind of thought the same with Ime Udoka, 6'6", 6'7", played in the league, good-looking dude, got the hot fiance, like he's going to have a commanding presence. And you know what? There's none there. But then again, maybe my mistake. That doesn't happen in the NBA, right? I mean, the NBA coach is kind of there at the behest of the players. Other than Greg Popovich, the NBA coach
grease the wheels, basically.
Yeah, it's as Chuck Daly famously said. He goes, "They allow us to coach them," and this was 35 years ago, and that's a Hall of Fame coach saying those things. So yeah, other than Popovich, like what coach in the NBA really is the guy? Like you think of that in college. Right, when you think of Duke, you think of Mike Krzyzewski.
No, that's what college basketball is.
That's all. The same thing with college football, right? It's all about the college coaches moving on whenever they certainly feel like it. The NFL is, a little bit of a mix, but you think of the quarterback. So maybe Udoka is trying to be Popovich, and it's just not going to work. But I'm just tired of him coming on after the game and giving us, this analysis when go fix it. You're the coach. or maybe just not capable of handling it.
Yeah, last night he said after the game, repetitive result. We need some leadership, somebody that can calm us down and not get rattled when everything starts to go a little south. They should tell the coach that. Maybe that's a great idea. But the problem is he's the coach, Seth.
Right.
He's saying we
That's
need
what
a
I'm
calming
saying.
presence. You're
Yeah,
supposed to be the calming presence. What are you talking about?
For? What are timeouts for? Right? What do you do in a timeout? Do you get rattled? I mean, do you turn into George Costanza in the huddle and panic, or Woody Allen? I mean, or in that situation when you got, and I'm tired of hearing about young players. I mean, your Tatum's in his 5th year, Smart's in his 8th year, Al Horford's older than rope, and Rob Williams is in his 3rd year. So it's not a young team anymore, right?
No,
so, but be the common presence to get the team going in the right direction. I don't. Yeah, exactly what I was saying is like he's telling us about the problems of the team, but he doesn't seem to know how to solve it or even want to solve it.
No, and he's also he's calling out the players and saying that we lack mental toughness, and that's sort of the kiss of death in NBA when the coach starts to call out the players. That's not a good sign. You can see it's the act is wearing very thin. In Portland too, Chauncey Billups is doing the same thing. Both first-year head coaches, and I tweeted this out this morning, Sap, and I think I mentioned to you when the season began. The Celtics management made a massive error when they hired Ime Udoka by not insisting that when he was building his staff, he have at least one guy who had prior NBA head coaching experience.
Yep.
Nobody on the staff does. Just as they made an error with Brad Stevens' staff when he had nobody on his staff with prior NBA playing experience.
Yep.
So eventually he hired Evan Turner, years into the job. But massive mistakes. I know people sort of take it for granted, don't think about it. It's an afterthought, but these are large coaching staffs, and it's not just the head coach there. And these guys are the guys on the team probably have a closer relationship with the assistant coaches as opposed to the head coach. And for a staff, for a guy who's going to be a first year head coach, to not have anybody to lean on with experience as a head coach in the NBA, that was a massive oversight and a massive mistake. And on top of that, Udoka just doesn't seems like a perfectly nice guy, just like I said about Brad Stevens. But like he's not ready. He's not ready for this. He hasn't been ready for this. He hasn't made any sort of improvements. The same mistakes happen every game in the same way. We talked about earlier in the show, Sap, he was playing Al Horford way too many minutes early in the season. And now you can see over the past, 10 Al Horford games, he's clearly fatigued. He's not playing the same way. He's not putting players in the right spots to succeed. He's dicking around with the lineups all the time. It's just, he's done a horrible job. He will last the season. They're not going to fire him midseason. I'm not sure that he's going to keep his job after the season. And the only thing I think that is going to hold the Celtics back from it, and maybe this sounds silly, Sap, is I think the organization fears being perceived as racist. And so I don't know that they would actually go through and fire him after the season, despite all the evidence saying he's not the right man for the job.
That's a great point because of what Kyrie Irving said and did last year in the playoffs. So Kyrie Irving, and I said it at the time, did a lot of damage to the Boston Celtics.
So much damage.
Not only did he, play well in a 5-game, gentleman's sweep over the Celtics, what he did and what he said was damaging because a lot of players in the league love Kyrie Irving. So goodbye to maybe attracting any free agents. And then you also look at it, the free agents you signed, Al Horford came here, then he left, then he came back. Gordon Hayward couldn't wait to get the hell out of here, and neither could Kemba Walker. So, the 3 pretty prominent free agents, I would call them B-level free agents that you got here. I mean, it wasn't LeBron or Durant or Kawhi. I mean, it was but the next level of players. They all left. So that's not a good sign. And then you get Kyrie, who, again, is incredibly respected, kind of the way Odell Beckham Jr. is in the NFL, right? I mean, like, they're the same guy. Like Odell Beckham Jr. is like the Pied Piper. He goes to the Rams and everybody loves him. And people in Cleveland are like, I can't believe we just let him go and we went downhill after he left. The same thing with Kyrie Irving. I mean, in a future podcast, we're going to talk about Kyrie, his return to the Nets, and like what other player could pull that off and supporting him, Kyrie Irving, because he's so well respected by other players, same like Odell Beckham Jr. So you've got to have that type of, buy-in from the players. And yeah, Kyrie did a lot of damage to the Celtics. What are they going to do though? If they move on from Udoka, do they bring Brad Stevens back? I mean, because I know Wick Grossbeck fears Brad Stevens is going to go coach somewhere else, which is an NBA coach. I mean, this isn't like, the Patriots losing Bill Belichick. Like, you'd be fearful, oh my God, Belichick's going to go coach the Jets, or obviously he wouldn't do that, but you get my point. So yeah, I don't know what it is. And I also think that this organization's got cheap, right? I think that's the only reason that Brad Stevens is running things. They owed him 6 years at $42 million, and they weren't going to write that check. So it's like, okay, he's not the coach anymore. Let's make him the general manager. It's like, we've got this chef signed for 5 years. We don't like the way he cooks anymore. So now he's the maitre d'. We're not getting rid of him. We got to pay him. And that's the problem. Where do you go from there? And you make great points, Jet. You got to have a former head coach there who we both love The Godfather, right? What was Robert Duvall, the consigliere, the guy who's there with him at his side, kind of, helping him along after games, is the guy that the head coach can cry on. They go out to dinner, like Joe Torre had it in the Yankee dugout with Don Zimmer. Yeah, you need that. You need that type of guy there.
That's the thing, Sap. He's
nothing to.
Yeah, he's new at this. He has no history to fall back on and say, I know what to do in this situation. It was a huge oversight for the Celtics. And yeah, I mean, Kyrie did a ton of damage to this organization. Danny Ainge did a ton of damage to this organization. Yep. I know people don't like to say that because, he did win a championship here, but ton of damage. And ownership, Sap, has done now a ton of damage. And where are they? They've gone completely AWOL. No one's heard from Wick Grossbeck.
You read my mind. You read my mind. And he's always been pretty transparent. Harold a couple times. He was fantastic. He used to go on Felger and Maz on the Sports Hub 3 or 4 times a year. I mean, we're halfway through the season. I haven't seen him go on there. It's like radio silence. It's like,
all they want to talk about, Sap, is, we're retiring Kevin Garnett's number and Paul Pierce and the 75th anniversary of the Celtics. They just want to talk about the glory days. And remember when Danny Ainge made that trade to get Tatum and Brown? And remember when Ray Allen came in here? And remember when we beat the Cavs and LeBron in 7 games? Like, that's all they want to talk about. And focus on.
It's like 45-year-old guys getting together at their 20th high school reunion, or 25th high school reunion, unless you're really slow, it'll be your 20th high school reunion. But you get my point, right? Guys in their early 40s going to their 25th high school reunion and talking about, hey, you remember when we beat the other team in football on that long pass? And yeah, what are you doing now? Well, I really haven't accomplished much in life, but let's talk about 25 years ago. That's kind of what the Celtics are. And it's really weird because for the longest time, this was an organization that didn't do that. It was all about like the next step. Like they weren't hanging division banners or, it was like when Red Auerbach was running things, and I go, that's ancient history, but that was a different mindset. Now it's like, I keep hearing about how they went to 3 Eastern Conference finals in 4 years.
I hate that line.
And did they really ever have a chance? I mean, I know they went 7 games against LeBron, but when it was game 7 at TD Garden and LeBron was on the court and you didn't have anybody quite like that, and not that anyone does, you knew the Cavaliers are going to win that game. And the year before that, it was a 5-game series. And Miami, they, just weren't quite up to it. They were probably the better team. But again, Jimmy Butler is a guy who's going to grab the moment more so than Tatum or Brown. And I'm not putting Butler, as an elite player. He's an all-star caliber player, and we both like him a lot. But he grabbed the moment, right? When it was there for him to get to his first and probably only finals. But going to what are they? The Indianapolis AFC runner-up 2014, which hangs, at whatever the Lucas Oil Field. That's not the Celtics. Eastern Conference Finals. What's that mean?
I'm telling you, they have an ownership problem, and I think you were the first person to point out the thing with maybe the pandemic affected their bottom line. Yep. But they have an ownership problem, and the owners are MIA, and no one's accountable for this right now. And they had the opportunity, we heard this offseason, to bring back Sam Presti, who I think is one of the finest GMs in the league. It would have cost the Celtics some dough, but they weren't willing to do that. Their scouting department, I think, sucks. The Celtics, especially,
you still have Danny Ainge's son, right? Ainge?
Austin. Especially their international scouting department is even worse. They're like the last team left in the NBA that hasn't been able to successfully scout a European player.
You're so right. You're so right. Yeah, South American, European. Yeah, they like look, San Antonio and Golden State do that probably better than anybody. Like
And
they
OKC.
and yeah, and they develop players. The Celtics don't. I mean, okay, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are Jayson Tatum even more so. They're really talented guys. They're no matter where you drop them, they were going to be all-stars, right? I mean, they're really talented guys. And then you're bringing in Marcus Smart was the 6th pick in the draft. He was a college All-American, a high school All-American. I mean, I know his style isn't something I like, but the guy is had a good college career. So you brought in guys that are pretty much talented guys that aren't going to miss it. But where you're developing players, you draft Neesmith and Langford, 14th overall, and you
Right.
can't develop them? Like, what's up with that? I want to see Neesmith play. I want to see him. If he goes 0 for 9, well, you know what? He actually fits in with the rest of the team because the other day they shot 4-42 from 3. So why not him jack up threes? Maybe he'll hit more than that.
We need a multi-billionaire who loves the Celtics to buy the team. I posted a list of the richest people in Massachusetts last night. I said any of them are fine except for John Henry. Not John Henry. I don't want him buying the Celtics.
No, I think he's going to end up with Portland. That was tricky though because LeBron owns 2% of Fenway Sports Group, so LeBron can't.
He'd have to divest. Yeah.
Right. Which again, we both think that when LeBron retires, that makes the most sense. Yes. Because Paul Allen's sister is probably going to sell the team at some point. I don't think she's too interested in it.
No.
So that makes the most sense for LeBron or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Bob Kraft.
I would love that. I would love it.
Yeah. Is Tom Brady going to come in and play? Because I mean, as good as Bob Kraft has been as an owner, the Revolution have been,
except for he
good.
emptied his pockets to bring in Bruce Arena, who's one of the best head coach, and it took him a while. But
yeah.
So
no, I think Kraft would love owning an NBA team, wouldn't he? I mean, he
goes to the games all the time.
He'd be center court with a giant chain, wouldn't he? I mean, he would love it.
He's a regular courtside at Celtics games already.
I think that would be pretty cool, actually. But again, the Celtics make money, so is Wick Grossbeck going to sell it? I mean, if whatever he's putting in his pocket every year, and it's still rich guys love those toys. Hey, I own the Boston Celtics. Maybe he's underfunded at this point. I don't know. I don't think he has the money certainly that James Dolan has, or Mark Cuban, or certainly the guy with the Clippers is worth $80 billion.
Ballmer.
Yes, I mean, he's
buy every team in the NBA.
Pretty much, yeah. And so, that could be a thing. I mean, look, I don't want to start railing on the Bruins. I put them in the same thing as what are they doing? Is it like the indoor winter sports season in the city sucks because the Celtics are just this maddening thing. They're interesting to talk about. It's like a car crash. It's not. They're certainly worth talking about because it's a mess. And the Bruins are irrelevant. You get the Patriots kind of chipping their way back, and the Red Sox had a nice. Who the hell knows what's going to happen with baseball? So yeah, I mean, but Wick is a local guy, right? I mean, he's not going to sell the team. Palyuka's a local guy, or at least they have ties here. I forget one of them. I think was originally from New York, or maybe they've both been here for a long time. But I don't think they're going to sell the team.
Yeah, it's not fair to fans if you're going to own the team and not commit to trying to make them better.
Right.
They're asking fans to spend their money or their time and watch the team, but you're not willing to do the same. So I'm frustrated with ownership. I'm frustrated with coaching, obviously management players. There's not a bright spot in the Celtics organization right now, Seth. There's not a single bright spot.
No, I mean, again, 2-11 in games decided by 5 or 6. That's the coaching, whatever on that. That's crazy. Really.
In games leading by 19. Go ahead.
I know.
Sorry.
No, you're right. But even if you're 6-7 in those games, which is still sub 500, you're the 6 seed instead of the 11 seed. Yeah. I mean, there's been 2 teams this year that blew 25 lead, and the other is the Celtics, which had the 25-point lead over the Knicks. But what's the stat when in games when they've had 19-point leads or larger?
They're 9-4.
How do you lose when you're up 19? And I get, look, the NBA is a little different than it was.
From 2016 to 2021, this is via Sean Grandy, the Celtics play-by-play on the radio guy. 2016, he would just make excuses after excuses.
No, but he tweets the stuff out during the game. What a multitasker he is. And I love Sean Grandy. I think he's a great play-by-play guy, but the numbers are flowing unless he's got timed tweets or whatever. But he's tweeting out or someone's handling his Twitter account. I don't know, but it's pretty amazing. He gets it out there during the game. What are the numbers between the last 5 years when leading by 19 or more points?
107-4.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a big difference.
And then 9-4 this year.
They're the worst fourth quarter team in the league, right?
Yes, they are. They're the worst fourth quarter team I've ever seen. This is my least favorite. I think it's the worst Celtics team since I've been a fan in terms of how the talent they have compared to what the actual record is.
My nephew is a little older than you, loves the Celtics. He said the same exact thing. He says he actually liked the ML Carr team, which went 15-67, better than this team.
I agree. Who's watching these at this point, Sap?
Yeah, because
the ratings, like NBC must be like, we don't want these games anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they should
air the fishing show. People would watch that more.
Yeah, well, sometimes Nesson does that, but what it is, it's like this, but it's like a broken record, right? It's just like nothing fresh here. It's like when they were up 25 last night, I wasn't totally confident they were going to win the game.
No,
because
I have a record of it. I'm in a group chat with all my buddies, and one of them was saying, Jay, I guess you're not going to be hard on the Celtics tonight. Looking good, 25. I said, you can't feel confident with this league. And then they blew it against the Spurs. They had the other night. They had like a 10-point lead. They blew that, no problem. Jaylen Brown missed a layup to end the game. There's nothing positive to say about the Celtics, not a single thing. And I want massive changes. I don't want little tweaks, massive changes. I'm talking about sell the team changes. I'm talking about whole new players changes.
That's not going to happen. I mean, you sound like Rick Pitino now. You come in and blow the whole thing up. But no, they've got to make some moves. And I think it starts with Jaylen Brown. And I would say Marcus Smart as well. I mean, I think if you move on from those two guys, again, Bradley Beal, who I'm not a huge fan of, but if it's going to appease Jayson Tatum, then so be it. I'm
going to come up with like 30 different trades, Sap, for our next show.
Rick Pitino. Yeah, that's for Rick Pitino. Did his first year guys for Travis Knight. Yeah. I mean, at least Danny Ainge traded 7 guys for Kevin freaking Garnett, not Travis Knight.
Right.
So yeah, come up with some trades and so forth. I mean, look, Ben Simmons, but is Philly going to trade Ben Simmons to the Celtics? And what would happen?
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Ben Simmons would be that facilitator that you need, and he's a great defensive player, and who knows?
No one respects him in the NBA. So,
right.
I don't know. It's a mess. That's the
bottom
line.
The most important thing is anyone checked on Mike Mully now, our very good friend who I think boycotted a few games, kind of like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think he's back to the Super Bowl.
Okay, he's back to the boycott because he came out and watched last night's game. So he's probably, when they're up 25 saying, well, this is pretty good, and then all of a sudden they, an hour later, RJ Barrett's banking a 27-footer in to win the game for the Knicks. So yeah, poor Mike. I just want to make sure he's at. You can't.
I can't
quit them. You can't quit them. No,
it's awful. That's why I'm saying I'm an abused fan.
Every time I try to get out, they pull me back in.
Just like you and Aaron Rodgers have an abusive relationship. I have an abusive relationship with the Celtics.
Yeah. Well, Aaron's going to get to his first Super Bowl in 11 years and then boycott it, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
He's
right on brand. Right on brand.
I'd love him and Kyrie Irving should do a show together. They should do a podcast together.
With Kurt Schilling. The three of them would be great together.
The Insufferables. That's what it would be called.
I like it.
All right, Sap, that's going to do it for us here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. We are, as always, presented by Full Press Coverage. Make sure you check out the show wherever podcasts are found. Make sure that you check out our social medias as well for all sorts of good stats and information and complaints about the Boston Celtics at JohnSap25, at Jet Stryer. And we'll be back with you next week with some more editions of the podcast. If you're in the Northeast, enjoy the snow, or maybe, don't enjoy the snow. But we will talk to you next week. See you, everybody.